Thank you to the Board of Education for having us here tonight in order to present the results of your June 30, 2024 audit. Before we provide an overview of the financial results, I wanted to discuss the deliverables that you have received related to the audit. You have received 3 items in your board packets: the basic financial statements labeled Financial Report, the Federal Programs Audit, and the letter entitled Report to the Board of Education. As it relates to the first deliverable, the financial report, all districts in the state of Michigan are required to have an audit conducted annually of their financial statements. We have performed the audit of the district's financial statements in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and in accordance with government auditing standards. As a result of our audit, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of assurance that we can give that the district's financial statements are fairly presented. Also included in the financial report is a footnote disclosing that the district has been subjected to the bond compliance requirements, and our audit procedures included evaluation of those requirements. We did not identify any compliance issues with the costs that we selected for testing. As it relates to the second item I mentioned, the federal programs audit is a separate audit performed over the district's federal grants received. This is a compliance-based audit where different grants are selected each year based on a rotational basis that takes into account the size of the programs and risk characteristics. For the current year under audit, we selected the Child Nutrition Cluster program. We have issued an unmodified opinion on this program, which means the district complied in all material respects with the requirements of this program. The final deliverable that we wanted to touch on briefly is the one entitled Report to the Board of Education. This outlines required post-audit communications and includes several informational items for your review and consideration. There continues to be significant changes and increased funding for districts through state aid and categorical programs, and this letter provides you with summaries of what is projected over the next year in terms of the state's overall economic landscape. This letter also provides information on other areas such as upcoming accounting standards and other information that we think is important for the Board of Education to understand. I want to congratulate the district and thank Mr. Sutherland, Ms. Jacobs, and the business office staff on their commitment to ensuring a smooth audit process. This was another challenging year in school funding, and the district demonstrated continued focus on integrity and accountability in its financial reporting. Receiving unmodified opinions is something to be proud of. I now turn it over to Hannah, who will provide an overview of the financial results.
Thank you, Jennifer. And the primary focus of these next couple slides are the presentation of the district's general fund. The general fund is the primary operating fund for the district, and on this slide we'll focus on general fund revenue for the year. As you can see here, revenue is broken out by the primary source. Total revenue for the year ended June 30th, 2024 was $214 million. When looking at the primary sources of revenue, the largest component of revenue is the unrestricted state aid funding at about 58%, and you can see that as blue on the pie chart. This is your per pupil funding received from the state based on your foundation allowance. If you look in orange, then you'll see your property taxes. This comprises of about 8% of total revenue. And then your federal revenue in orange comprises of about 3.2% of revenue for the year. Your COVID source funding making up approximately 0.3%, which is a significant decrease as seen in prior years. At the top of the pie chart, you'll see your MIPSR's cost support at about 12%. This is also referred to as your 147C categoricals. The largest portion of these categoricals is $18.7 million made up of your 147C revenue. This amount is immediately remitted back to the state upon receipt. Finally, you'll see your various state grant categoricals made up of at-risk or GSRP at about 19%. This slide presents general fund revenue for the year ended June 30th, 2024, which is on your left side, compared to general fund revenue for the year ended June 30th, 2023 on the right side. As you can see, general fund revenue increased about $12 million during the year, up to $14 million from $202 million in the prior year. Looking at the graphs on the pie chart, you can see that the largest in blue is your state foundation allowance. This remained fairly consistent year over year, and although you can see that there's a slight decrease in percentage, the total dollar amount increased year over year. There was a significant increase in state categorical funding in the current year, which contributed to the shift observed in the percentage of revenue, as you can see under your state, local, and interdistrict revenue sources. Taking a look at your MIPSR's cost support category, in the prior year, they were allocated a one-time amount of $9 million, which was your 147C2, which increased the category in the prior year and contributed to the decrease in the current year. Finally, if you take a look at your federal COVID funding as discussed on the last slide, you'll see that it decreased to about 1.2% in 2023 to 0.3% in 2024. So in the last few years, the district has worked towards final completion of the COVID grants and had approximately only $537 in federal expenditures related to COVID funding grants in the current year, which is a significant decrease as seen in the prior years. Next, we're going to discuss general fund expenditures. This slide represents general fund expenditures in 2024. Total expenditures for the year were $210 million. So there are several general fund expenditure graphs that you'll see in the slides moving forward, so this will lay the groundwork. As you can see, this pie chart is broken by the primary functional areas of the district, meaning where does the district incur expenditures. You can see the largest portion of the pie chart is in blue, related to instruction and instructional support. So these are dollars spent directly in the classroom and any classroom-related activities. The other main categories are operations and maintenance at about 16%, and then school and general administration at about 8%. Now let's look at general fund expenditures comparatively for the years ended June 30th, 2024 and June 30th, 2023 on the right side. Expenditures in 2024 were $210 million for the year, representing approximately a 6.5% increase from the prior year. As you can see, expenditures have increased in the current year, but there has also been a corresponding increase in revenue. However, there are some shiftings within the categories. You can see there was a slight increase in transfers during the year, and then in operations and maintenance. This next slide continues our analysis of general fund expenditures. The slide compares Chippewa Valley's actual breakdown of expenditures on your left side compared to the statewide averages breakdown of expenditures on the right side. It's important to note that the statewide averages are based on 2023 data, as that's the most recent data readily available. The district's emphasis on instruction is clear. Instruction represents 73%, with less being spent proportionally on other areas and operations administration compared to the statewide average listed on the right. The next slide continues to look at your general fund expenditures with the district's actual 2024 expenditures on the left side compared to what the expenditures would be if you would take the statewide average and take them to the $210 million of Chippewa Valley's current year expenditures. Chippewa's commitment to instruction resulted in expenditures of $155 million in 2024. If the district's operations were structured the same as the statewide average, they would have spent $153 million on instruction. The $200 million difference just goes to show the additional resources being allocated directly into the classrooms. Similarly, the district's efficiency in operations has allowed them to devote a smaller percentage to administration, transportation, and maintenance. Administration and business accounted for $16 million in 2024, and if the district were following statewide averages, they would have spent $20 million on business and administration. Transportation, operation, and maintenance were lower slightly than the statewide average as shown. This slide will provide a summary of general fund balance results. So at the beginning of the year, general fund balance was $36 million. For the year ended June 30th, 2024, fund balance ended at $40 million. As you can see, that's a $4 million increase in fund balance during the year. Next, you'll see general fund balance as a percent of expenditures. So we'd like to look at this because it puts fund balance into perspective for benchmarking. You can see there was a slight increase up to 19.40% in the current year. Now at the bottom of the slide, you can see fund balance to days of operation. So this is a great way to put fund balance into perspective operationally. So with the current fund balance, if there was no longer any revenue, it could fund 71 days of operations. This slide represents a historical view of the general fund over the last 10 years. In the current year, as noted on the previous slide, fund balance increased $4 million during the year. Over the time horizon shown, there has been significant increases in fund balance, but it's important to note that expenditures have also increased over time, as you'll see that compared and brought in on our next slide. Here we show general fund balance as a percent of expenditures over the last 10 years. As you can see here, it stayed relatively consistent, only changing about 0.25%. The district's consistency over this metric just emphasizes their focus and priority in fiscal responsibility and strong management of the financial elements of the district. This last chart will summarize the general fund balance across all Macomb County school districts. It's important to note that this is based on 2023 data, as that's the most recently available, and you can see the statewide average is shown as of June 30th, 2023 at about 21%, and Chippewa Valley falls slightly on the higher end of the county, just slightly below the statewide average, and you can see them in orange and then the state average highlighted in red. So that was all we had for you today. We really appreciate your time, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.